Jaehaerys Targaryen celebrated his 50th birthday in 84 AC. The years had taken their toll on him, and those who knew him well said that he was never the same after his daughter Sarah had disgraced and abandoned her family. He had grown much thinner, almost gaunt, and there was more grey in his gold beard and in his hair. For the first time, men were starting to call him the Old King, rather than the conciliator as he had been known since his early rule. Alyssane, shaken by all the losses they had suffered, withdrew more and more from governance of the realm, and rarely came to the small council meetings. But Jaehaerys still had his faithful Septon Bath and his sons. He told Aemon and Balon if there's another war, it was for them to fight it now. His fighting days were done, and he had his roads and great projects to finish. 2 years later, in 86 AC, Queen Alyssane, ever the matchmaker, announced the betrothal of her daughter Viserra, 15 years of age, to Theomore Manderly, the fierce old lord of White Harbour. The marriage would do much and more to tie the realm together by uniting one of the greatest houses of the north to the Iron Throne. Lord Theomore had won great renown as a warrior in his youth, and had proved himself a canny lord under whose rule White Harbour had prospered greatly. Queen Alyssane was very fond of him as well, remembering the warm welcome he had given her during her visit to the north. Manderly had outlived 4 wives, and while still a doughy fighter, he had grown very stout, which did little to recommend him to the princess Viserra. She had a very different man in mind. Even as a little girl, Viserra had been the most beautiful of the queen's daughters. Great lords, famous knights and callow boys had danced attendance on her all her life, feeding her vanity. Her great delight in life was playing one boy off another, goading them into foolish quests and contests. To win her favour for a joust, she made an admiring squire swim the Blackwater Rush, climb the Tower of the Hand, and set free all the ravens in the rookery. Once she took 6 boys to the dragon pit, and told them she would give her maidenhead to whoever put his head in a dragon's mouth. But the dragon keepers swiftly put an end to that. No squire was ever going to win Viserra's heart, Queen Alyssane knew. Not her heart, and certainly not her maidenhead. She was far too sly a child to go down the same path as her sister Sarah. She had no interest in kissing games, nor boys, the queen told Jaehaerys. She plays with them as she used to play with puppies. She aims much higher. I have seen the way she preens and prances around Balon. That is the husband she desires, and not for love of him. She wants to be queen. Prince Balon was 14 years older than Viserra, 29 to her 15. But other lords had married younger maids, and she well knew that. It had been 2 years since Princess Alyssane had died, yet Balon had shown no interest in any other woman. He married one sister, so why not another? Viserra told her closest friends. I am much prettier than Alyssa ever was. You saw her. She had a broken nose and mismatched eyes. If the princess was intent on marrying her brother, the queen was equally determined to prevent it. Her answer was Lord Manderly and White Harbour. Theomore is a good man, Alyssane told her daughter. A wise man, with a kind heart and a good head on his shoulders. His people love him. Frustrated, Viserra next turned to Balon in hopes of rescue. Slipping past his guards into his bedchamber one night, she disrobed and waited for him, making free with the prince's wine while she waited. When Prince Balon finally appeared, he found her drunk and naked in his bed and sent her on her way. The princess was so unsteady that she required the help of 2 maids and Knight of the King's Guard to get her safely back to her own apartments. How the battle of wills between Queen Alyssane and her headstrong 15-year-old daughter might finally have been resolved, we will never know. Not long after the incident in Balon's bedchamber, as the queen was making arrangements for Viserra's departure from King's Landing, the princess traded clothes with one of her maids to escape the guards who had been assigned to keep her out of mischief, and slipped away from the Red Keep for what she termed one last night of laughter before she went and froze. Her companions were all men, 2 minor lordlings and 4 young knights, all green as spring grass and eager for Viserra's favour. One of them had offered to show the princess parts of the city that she had never seen. The pot shops and rat pits of Flea Bottom, the inns along Eel Alley, and River Row where serving wenches danced on tables, the brothels on the Street of Silk. Ale, mead and wine all featured in the evening's frolics, and Viserra partook eagerly. At some point near midnight, the princess and her remaining companions decided to race back to the castle. A wild ride through the streets of the city ensued, with King's Landers scrambling out of the way to avoid being run down and trampled. Laughter rang through the night, and spirits were high, until the racers reached the foot of Aegon's High Hill, where Viserra's palfrey collided with one of her companions. The knight's mare lost her footing and fell, breaking his legs beneath her. The princess was thrown from the saddle head first into a wall. Her neck was broken. It was the hour of the wolf, the darkest time of night, when it fell to Sir Ryan Redwine of the Kingsguard to rouse the king and queen from their sleep, to tell them that their daughter had been found dead in an alley at the foot of Aegon's high hill. Despite their differences, the loss of Princess Viserra was devastating to the queen. In the space of 5 years, the gods had taken 3 of her daughters, Daela in 82, Alyssa in 84, and Viserra in 87 AC. Prince Balon was greatly distraught as well, wondering if he should have spoken to his sister with less harsh tone the night he had found her naked in his bed. Though he and Aemon were a comfort to the king and queen in their time of grief, along with Aemon's wife, Lady Jocelyn, and their own daughter, Rhaenys, it was their own remaining daughters that Alyssane turned to for solace. Maegella, 25 years of age and a scepter, took leave from her sept to stay with her mother for the rest of that year, and Princess Gale, a sweet child of 7, became the queen's constant shadow and support, even sharing her bed at night. The queen took strength from her presence, but even so, more and more she found her thoughts turning to her daughter, the daughter who was not with her. Though Jaehaerys had forbidden it, Alyssane defied his edict and secretly engaged agents to keep watch over her across the narrow sea. Sarah was still in Lys. She knew from their reports, still at the pleasure garden. Now 20 years of age, she often entertained her admirers, still garbed as novice of the faith. There were evidently a good many Lyseni who took pleasure in ravishing an innocent young woman who had taken vows of chastity, even when the innocence was feigned. It was her grief over the loss of Princess Viserra that finally drove the queen to approach Jaehaerys about Sarah once again. She brought Septon Bath along with her to speak on the virtues of forgiveness and the healing properties of time. Only when Bath had finished did her grace mention Sarah's name. Please, she begged the king. She has been punished enough, surely. She is our daughter. Jaehaerys would not be moved. She is a Lyseni whore, he replied. She opened her legs for half my court, threw an old woman down the steps, and tried to steal a dragon. What more do you require? Have you given any thought to how she got to Lys? She had no coin. How do you think she paid for her passage? The queen cringed at the harshness of his words, but she still would not yield. If you will not bring Sarah home for love of her, bring her home for love of me. I need her. You need her as a Dornishman needs a pit viper, Jaehaerys said. I am sorry. King's Landing has sufficient whores. I do not wish to hear her name again. With those words, he rose to leave, but at the door he halted and turned back. We have been together since we were children. I know you as well as you know me. Right now you are thinking that you do not need my leave to bring her home, that you can take Silverwing and fly to Lys yourself. What would you do then? Visit her in the pleasure garden? Do you imagine she will fly into your arms and beg forgiveness? She is more likely to slap you in the face. And what will the Lyseni do if you try and make off with one of their whores? She has value to them. How much do you think it costs to lay with a Targaryen princess? At best, they will demand a ransom for her. At worst, they may decide to keep you too. What will you do then? Shout for Silverwing to burn their city? Would you have me send Aemon and Balon with an army to see if they can prize her free? You want her. Yes, I hear you. You need her. But she does not need you, or me, or Westeros. She is dead. Bury her. Queen Alyssane did not fly to Lys, but neither did she ever quite forgive King Jaehaerys for the words he spoke that day. Plans had been underway for some time for the two of them to make another progress the following year, returning to the Westerlands for the first time in 20 years. Shortly after their falling out, the Queen informed Jaehaerys that he should go alone. She was going back to Dragonstone, alone, to grieve for their dead daughters.